Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the show that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime on trending criminal cases. This is a case, unfortunately, that has actually been in the news since 2014. It is now 2025. I'll let you do the math, but we are making headway in terms of getting justice for Dan Markel. But all this might come to a screeching halt. This is the trial, the case that launched it all for Surviving the Survivor. But now, sort of a last-minute discovery dump from the state on the defense's lap has this trial in question in terms of its start date, which was supposed to be June 3rd, just about a month away. There will be a hearing in 2 days on this Wednesday, about how to proceed. Meanwhile, Charlie Adelson and Wendi Adelson's depositions have reportedly been canceled. Donna's team has hired a digital forensics expert, and here to break it all down, famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney R. Timothy Jansen, the letter and O-U-R. Next up, he is the former Florida state attorney and the new just defense attorney. But you know, these are the guys, just as Tim Jansen, making
he just joined bucks. The club.
The big bucks club. Here you go.
Yeah. 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
And last but not least, she's never interested in money, Joe Patuto. She's just seeking truth and justice. And you know what? She's got the last laugh, Dave Arinberg. She spends like half the year in Italy. She's semi-retired. She does what she wants when she wants, while the rest of us remain on the hamster wheel. How about that? So Dave Arinberg, Tim and Joe have been with us. We have not had you on in a little while. So apparently, according to Tim Jansen, actually, the state, the SAO, your old office up in Leon County, literally just dumped something like 80,000 emails. Whatever it is, it's a lot of discovery on the lap of the defense. And now the defense is saying, hey, wait, we need a continuance here. So there's going to be a hearing on Wednesday. What do you make of this?
Poor Donna. She hates Tallahassee. And now her lawyers are asking for the case to be moved further back than it is already. Every minute she's there, she's just dreading it. And so this is because they got all that information off her phones, and there's no prosecutorial misconduct here. They delivered it to the other party when they got it. And I don't think that it's a bad idea to move the trial back, because you do need time to go through those 80,000 emails. So I think there's a real possibility that it does get moved back, to the chagrin of the defendant.
Well, Dave, the only thing that she likes less than Tallahassee is probably jail. And she's not doing well there. You heard her say she gained a third of her body weight. She's having a hard time, complaining of the bed, the mattress, and so forth. How much longer do you think this means she stays in jail till this trial happens? I mean, we're talking the fall here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Judge Everett doesn't want to prolong this any longer than he has to. So I do think maybe the fall, but for our viewers' sake, let's get this ball rolling. I mean, everyone's interested in this trial. We all want it to go. And how many more carbs can Donna eat? I mean, she's feasting on a pure white starch diet, which is causing her weight gain. I'm sure it's hurt her sciatica. And at least she hasn't been harassed in the showers lately. We haven't heard that much lately from her counsel, from her. So at least that's going on for her. But I do think this thing will go this year. I do think that it's in the interest of all sides for it to happen.
By the way, if you can't tell, I can't tell you the location. It's an undisclosed location, but Dave Arinberg is somewhere in Manhattan. And if you look at just one of those windows over his right shoulder, just one of those windows, I used to live behind one of those, and you get to pay, I don't know, $5,000 to $7,000 now a month to live behind one of those windows. You get basically a bathroom and a bed. So it's not unlike Donna Adelson. It just costs a lot more. And the hamster wheel never stops spinning in that city. I love New York, but I like visiting. I don't like.
That plays over my shoulder. It's probably like the Four Seasons, uh, but where Donna is, there's just one season. There's no Four Seasons in Tallahassee jail.
Yeah. Dave, people are already asking, what's up? So now are you still hosting your channel? What's going on? What can we plug for you? Because now you're a busy attorney.
Well, thank you for the interest. So I started my own firm, Dave Arinberg Law, based in West Palm Beach. We do civil and criminal litigation. And it's interesting. I even referred a case to the great Tim Jansen, because if you need a lawyer in Tallahassee, that's who you call. And Joe, if I get a case in Italy, I'm going to send them your way over there. But I also do videos for Legal AF, which is part of the Midas Touch Network on YouTube.
And Joe, let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer this, but as a law professor, are you required to take the bar exam? In other words, are you licensed through the bar?
I'm licensed in Nebraska and New Jersey. I believe I'm still licensed. I'm licensed in New York. I've got admissions to circuit courts and the Supreme Court of the United States. Yeah.
Wow.
You're not required to, but it's a pretty good idea to do it.
You should have Dave first off and just say you're going to do the work, but not do it, and just take the paycheck since you're licensed. That's my recommendation.
That's not Joe's style.
No, I like to do the work. You're right.
That's definitely not. So Joe Patudo, since we last talked, you've had time to sleep on this. By the way, I do want to open this up to STS today. We'll go through some of sort of the main points here. Dave's with us just for about another half hour, and I would like to open it up. We will at some point soon. But Joe Patudo, you've had time to rest on this. The main question, of course, is a trial continuance being a very real possibility. You just heard Dave Arinberg say he thinks it's going to happen. What about you now, having time to ponder it all? Ooh, what happened to Joe?
I'm here. I hit the wrong button. Well, I think the last thing I saw, and Tim and Dave may be a little more updated than I am, the state wasn't agreeing to the defense motion for the continuance, and that I think makes it not as quite a done deal as it would be if everybody agreed. I do agree with Dave that the safer course would be to grant some continuance, although I would try to do it until September. I guess they don't want to do anything in the summer, because then you eliminate an argument on appeal that they were rushed to do it. And I just think, as much as we want to go this trial to go, the safer course and the smarter course is to have it go with as few appealable issues sitting there as you can manage. So my guess, I agree with Dave, my guess is that the continuance will be granted, and my hope is that it will go around the 1st of September.
That is no bueno for me, because I was looking forward to covering this. With that said, if it does get continued, yours truly might head up to that New York City to cover Diddy.
And we'd love to have you. You disparage New York, but it's the greatest city in the world.
It is.
And the reason why you have to pay so much rent is because it's the greatest city in the world. If you're out in the middle of the desert, you don't have to pay any rent.
I do. You're right. I do love New York City. I prefer to visit rather than live there. At this point, there was a time when maybe the opposite was true. Tim Jansen, you're the Tallahassee insider, getting business from Dave Arinberg. What do we expect on Wednesday? By the way, Abbey Crossing is trying to confirm the time as 4 p.m. Eastern for the hearing. I feel like I remember that being the time, although that seems late in the day. STS Nation, if you guys know the specific time on Wednesday, let me know. But Tim Jansen, what is going to happen at this hearing besides Judge Everett glaring at the defense for them trying to bounce Everett off of this case? What else can we expect?
Well, I think the state has a lot of things they have to be concerned about. One, they have to protect the conviction if they get it. They know that they turned over a lot of documents that the defense has not gone over with yet. They haven't had an expert to go over these documents. So they don't want to push too hard, that they don't want to continue the trial. I'm sure they may have some expert witness problems or some witness problems that are all cleared for June. And on the other hand, they have to watch out for ineffective assistance if they didn't ask for a continuance. And then she gets convicted and says, well, they didn't have enough time. They didn't hire this expert. I think September is the best time. When I talked to somebody of no, that they were happy that they don't want it in July and they don't want it in August because of jury selection and people going on vacation, students being gone. It's much better in the fall for everybody. And I think that will happen. He's given 30 minutes for this motion to continue, which is not a lot of time. So he's read the motions already. He kind of has an idea. And I think he's probably going to have Donna go on the record and say, you are okay with this continuance, or you are not okay with, but she filed it. Obviously the lawyer went over with the client. So he probably wants her to acknowledge that she agrees to the continuance.
And I just looked, by the way, I just used the Google, both the Markels and Adelson celebrate the Jewish high holidays, which are in the fall. And this year they begin on September 22nd. So I remember last time they worked around that. Yeah. So they're probably going to work around those holidays, which is going to complicate things, I guess, a little bit. From Jamie G here to Dave Arinberg. Will the new document dump implicate Harvey? Arinberg knows all, but I don't know that he knows this. We always hear about Wendy, but Harvey's got to be getting scared. My mother has called the Harvey card since day one, saying he knows everything, just basing it on her relationship with my dad, who knew a lot and was a quiet guy. But Dave, I guess the bigger question is 80,000 emails is the what we've heard. Whatever it is, it's a lot of terabytes of discovery. What could this mean? What could it mean potentially for Wendy and or Harvey?
And this is why I always appreciated the approach of my former colleague, Jack Campbell. He went meticulously one at a time. He could have arrested Donna earlier in this, but by going one at a time, he was able to get evidence for her trial and for perhaps other trials that he would not have, like Donna's phone when they got her trying to flee the country. That's something they wouldn't have had she not tried to flee, which happened after Charlie was convicted and she had that phone call with Charlie saying, I'm either going to kill myself or flee. So they're able to get all this stuff that wouldn't have even existed, plus all those extra messages, the emails that occurred after Charlie was convicted. So who knows what's on it, but it just shows why they did what they did. Had they just arrested her at the beginning, it would have been a much harder case. They wouldn't have had all this information, and perhaps the case would have ended earlier without any other family members being charged. I don't know if if Harvey is going to be charged next. I still maintain that if Donna is convicted, and I think she will be convicted, I think it's most likely then the next person will be Wendy. Harvey, I think, is the least likely of all the family members to be charged, but not impossible. We don't know what the state attorney has.
COE letting everybody know the docket does say 4 p.m. as of right now for Wednesday. We will bring that to you live. It's unclear, at least to me, if Donna's going to be in there. I heard she might be on Zoom. Mary Binney, a member for 15 months. Thank you so much. From Sunshine, Joe, this question, number one is, why would it take so long to turn over communication? We kind of discussed this last time. I mean, Joe, there is a possibility that the digital forensics experts for the SAO for the state may have just been able to get into it recently if it's a phone or email. So let's start there. Do you agree with that? And that's why it's all happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for certain what it is that that got in the way of doing it more quickly, but I am pretty sure that they tried to do it as quickly as possible, knowing the trial date was coming. I don't think there's no reason to believe that they waited until the last minute to turn over this and jeopardize being able to go on that June date. It certainly seems to be emails, texts, maybe phone messages that are on Donna's phone. I suppose there's an outside chance that if they're still working, and I don't know, Tim or Dave might know, if they're still working on trying to enhance the technology or the audio on information they had before, or if they stop that. But there might be things that they're still trying to improve that they entered in the in one of the earlier trials, particularly Charlie's, that they may still have been working on to make it easier to hear or observe. But we know two things. One, I think they worked as quickly as possible to get these documents. And two, there must be something on it that helps the state's case.
It may help the defense case.
That's true.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah, Tim, I mean, to that point, someone asked earlier.
I saw that.
Well, they asked earlier if this means that there's something in there for the state, but you're now saying it could go both ways or one way or the other, that it could just be beneficial to the defense, not the state. But if the state is planning to use a lot of this discovery, does that mean it is necessarily beneficial to the government?
Well, if they're going to use it, obviously they think it's relevant to some fact or a witness or to corroborate a fact or they might be anticipating a defense and they're going to use it. They might want to use it in impeachment, but the defense could get it and they don't really know what the defense is going to be. And there might be some emails, text messages or something there that would lend credence to Donna's defense, right? So they have to go through all of those if they're doing, diligent representation. I think the judge is in a tough spot. And it may be none of this evidence is even going to be admissible in the trial, but you don't know. And you have to give the defense proper due process to go through it. They may need to hire an expert, right? To go through some of these. And those things take time. And this is a first-degree murder case. So not easy.
Yeah. So Dave, Tim gets asked every show, what about Wendy? And you mentioned Wendy, and now I've asked him so many times that I have to ask Joe, but now you're here, so I can ask you. So Dave, what if there's something in this discovery, and we've heard rumblings that maybe there are people pointing to Sarah Youssef comes to mind that could be pointing to Wendy to help the state out in terms of getting some sort of indictment against her. What are your thoughts on Wendy? I mean, is there a possibility that there's something in this discovery that is enough to kind of go maybe against the Jack Campbell playbook and make an arrest if this trial is continued prior to Donna's upcoming trial? In other words, Donna's trial maybe, let's say, gets continued to September. Is there any chance that someone like Wendy or Harvey could be arrested in the interim?
I don't think, practically speaking, that they will arrest Wendy before Donna goes to trial. I think they have shown over and over again that this is their playbook, one at a time. And once they can get a conviction of Donna, then they can go after Wendy. If they lose the Donna case, then I think this case ends. I don't think they go any further. But I don't think they're going to lose Donna Adelson's case. So
if I can add something, excuse me, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just going to say that there is a possibility, of course, that what they find on Donna's phone could inure to the benefit of Wendy if she and Charlie are messaging back and forth saying, "Why did we do this for this ungrateful woman who, why did we do this for her when she knew nothing? We should have, they could be exculpating her by saying that she knew nothing about this and we did this on her behalf without her being involved or knowing. That would be pretty bad for the prosecution, but I suspect that she's known about what was going on all along.
Yeah. I wanted to add something, Joel, and that is, first of all, they've used Wendy before to bolster the case, and I think that's one reason why they would not add her now. But the other thing is, if Wendy's added, this is going to be delayed even longer. In the first place, she's going to have to hire a lawyer who's going to have to get up to speed. In the second place, she's got the derivative use immunity issue that they're going to have to resolve with regard to evidence that goes in against her at the trial. And that will inevitably push back Donna's trial for several months. And I can't imagine that the state wants to do that. They've got their witnesses ready to go on Donna and to delay it even more in order to add Wendy, even if right now they have enough that they think they could go, seems to me something that they would be very hesitant to do.
Yeah, she's on the witness list for the Donna Adelson trial. Well, they're not going to be able to use her if they charge her beforehand. So no, they're not charging her before this trial's over.
There you go. You're hearing it from Dave right now, with an assist from Joe Patuto.
Hey,
By the
Dave,
way,
how
Joe,
often do you want to do a Castagar hearing?
How often?
Yeah. Have you ever done one?
I personally have never done one.
Right.
Yeah.
They're paying. You have to,
Tim, explain what it is
Okay.
again. 'Cause most people don't know.
Castagar means when you give someone derivative use immunity and then you later charge that person, you have to prove that your charges and all the evidence you're going to introduce came independent of that testimony that was forced upon that defendant. The judges will go out of their way to lean favorable to the defendant because it was compelled. It's a really high standard. It's a really hard thing to do. And I just don't see it.
Well, let me say, because I've taught this and I've done some, mood experiences with it. Unless Florida's got a different standard, the burden is going to be preponderance. Now that doesn't mean that the state won't be very careful and the judge won't be very careful. A lot of the evidence there won't be any issue about because it was. I mean, the interview, for example, that she gave to the police right at the start.
That's
So
fair
the
game.
only things that can be at issue here are her testimony at trial, and then anything that they got because of her testimony at trial that would not have been inevitably discovered some other way. So it's, I mean, I agree with you completely, Tim, that it's going to take, a very careful going through all of it, and it'll take some time. I guess I disagree a little that there will be a lot of evidence that will turn out to be inadmissible because of what she testified to. Could be, because we don't know exactly what the state's going to want to use. But they should be doing all along a very careful documentation of whatever evidence they're coming up with, where the line was and how they found it, in order to help when they get to the Castagar hearing. And I assume they've been doing that all along.
Hey, Tim. So, from CJ, to be clear, there are 80,000 relevant emails, or are these CVS coupons, shipping receipts? Those CVS receipts, man, they never end. I only get them digitally now. I can't.
Well,
get those
we
things
don't
printed
know
out.
because they haven't shared them with them. Thank God, because I don't want to spend my nights looking at all these emails to get ready for your show, Joe, because other people will do that. But I agree. I had a case, so Joe, and it was a murder case, and I got my guy immunity, and they wanted the body, right? The dead body. So I made sure that my client told him where it was because they couldn't make derivative use of it, which meant they can never say he was murdered because they can't introduce a body because it came from my client. So while they thought they were winning the battle, they lost the war, right? So
they've got to be very careful with the questions. They shouldn't ask any open-ended questions. Should be very precise, because the defendant runs a risk, Tim, if he does what you said and he answers, he provides a non-responsive, incriminating answer. You're not going to let them monkey with the system either. So it takes some. I mean, I think it'll be fun to watch, but this is the law professor of me, and I wouldn't mind reading the 80,000 emails.
I haven't seen in my 30 years here, I haven't heard of a Castagar hearing being held at this state attorney's office.
Did I not? And maybe
Dave, have you ever? Does your office do them?
I can say I've never done one. Now, my office, I'm sure my office has done them, but as far as me personally, no, they are not normal. It doesn't happen all the time. That's why, but this case is never normal. There's nothing normal about this case. Of those 80,000 emails, not all, by the way, are compelling evidence. I do think there's a bunch of, hey, I made $10,000 working from home. I'll bet you there's a bunch of those in there.
Harvard Dave, did you even know what a Castagar was before Tim just mentioned it? You can tell me. No one else is listening.
Yes, because it's criminal law. And it's actually something. It's actually something you need to know, because when you deal with immunity, you got to know how to get around the whole immunity thing. So
Dave, what was your GPA at Harvard Law? Do you have such a thing? I want to know. Were you
I
like
don't
a
remember. It's
4.0?
been so long.
Were you top of the class? Were you number one and you're being humble right now?
I was not number one. I was
Two?
cum laude, but I wasn't magna cum laude, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Your parents still
And
love
So
summa,
you.
I
forget it.
thought,
Yeah.
I thought I heard early on, and I could have made this up because this case has gone so long, that Miami, that the DA in Miami actually has what they call a Castagar lawyer sitting there. Could that be right?
If they do, it's someone who has other
A
duties.
lot of
because there's
jobs,
no-
yeah.
there's
Right.
no way there's enough Castagar
Right.
work. I want that job.
That's
I'll
a
be a
good
Castagar
thing.
lawyer. Work 10 hours a month. Like that.
Professor, there's a question from one of your students here, Abby Crossing. Do they have to turn over discovery regardless of whether they intend to use it? I mean, they've got to, right? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an easy one to answer. Anybody who gets that wrong should not have graduated law school.
Tim Jansen, let's see if you pass Joe's class with us. So
Probably
I did reach out to John Suiki, and
Yes.
he can no longer comment on this case
Right.
because he is now being under the employ of the Adelson defense team. John's a phenomenal guy, really good guy, and he's a digital forensics expert. He was a police officer in Portland, Oregon, then became a lawyer, and now he's got his own digital forensics team. So what does a guy like and by the way, he apologized for not being able to comment, which he didn't need to do, of course. But Tim, what is he doing, John Suiki? He's very bright and he's very methodical. What does his job entail?
Now, John also does cell tower. He can do that with Corbett. He could be used to impeach or contradict Corbett's testimony. He can look at the cell phones. Remember, there's a big discrepancy about where Donna was when they said that they paid the money. Catherine said that she was there. They're trying to put her right near the location of Charlie's house. And I think the defense is trying to say, no, she was on the interstate and she was just asking if he was home. So Suiki might be able to give some information on that. He's very good on phones. He can tell you dates and times, how to read a phone log, and so he might have something that he can discredit Corbett, or at least try to neutralize Corbett, because Corbett is one of the best.
And Corbett's he works
that I've seen.
Yeah, he's the TPD guy. He's
a very good witness. He knows his stuff, and he's a great witness because he always turns to the jury. I mean, he really knows what he's doing. He's got substance, and he's not afraid to admit when he doesn't know the answer, which makes him even more difficult to cross-examine.
Joe, look at this from Sue Panakis, a great panel, and what a powerhouse Joe is from Perth, Western Australia. Joe, you have officially arrived. But did you want to add on to something that Tim just said? Looked like you did. Oh, you're muted though. They have to hear you. And
I want to ask a question about this. They had a discussion, and they had to get Judge Everett to say that Suiki would be able to work for the defense, notwithstanding the fact that he had worked earlier for, was it Katie? I can't remember which, and they were going to need to get a waiver from of attorney-client privilege from the earlier client. So my question is, that could only have happened, a few days ago, within the last week? So I am guessing, but Tim and Dave, you may be better placed to answer this, but I am guessing that at this point, they don't know what Suiki will be able to do for them or how helpful he might be. He's got to go through the documents, and they had to wait to let him analyze or talk to them about it until he was cleared by Judge Everett. So are we sure that they already know that he's going to help, or are we at a stage where they've hired him because he's very good and now he's going to be going through and they'll decide whether what he says can help?
Now, remember, you can hire an expert not to testify. You can hire an expert solely to prepare questions to cross-examine the state's experts.
Right.
He doesn't have to appear as a witness, but he can work with the team.
Sure, but he couldn't do anything until after Judge Everett cleared him to be able to work for them. I mean, they had a challenge to whether he would be able to use because of his prior representation, and that last week hadn't been resolved.
Who did he represent? Do we know?
Yeah, and I'm
was he with Charlie, or was he with Catherine.
I
Yeah,
think it was Catherine, but
I know he represented someone early on, but I'm not sure.
yeah,
I'm sure FCS will know
Probably
the
not
answer to that.
Lewis.
Yeah, let us know. Dave, to you, in terms of just this massive discovery dump that we keep hearing about, I don't think that this is a strategic move. But is this frowned upon by the judge or the defense or the court in general, or is this just a situation where, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier, that maybe they just cracked the code to one of these devices that were in their possession and they could only get to it now?
Yeah, well, it depends. If it's deliberately withheld, like you saw in the Lori Vallow Daybell case up in Idaho, then you're going to get sanctioned. And the prosecutors there got sanctioned because they took the death penalty off the table. But here, there's no evidence that the prosecutors were deliberately trying to withhold it. Why would they do that? They got these messages late. They perhaps had an IT expert at government expense, which, we don't have a lot of money over there in the state attorney's office, and they got what they got and they turned it over. And so unless it's deliberately being withheld, there's not going to be a sanction here. And the most that'll happen will be that the trial gets delayed over their objections. I do think that will happen, but as Joe correctly said, because it's not an unopposed motion, because the prosecution is on the other side of this, perhaps the judge does say, yeah, you had enough time, or at least we won't give you the time you're seeking. We'll just give you an extra month. But either way, I do think overall there will be a delay, but it won't be because of any bad faith from the prosecution.
By the way, if you appreciate the content, and it's good content, not because of me, but because of the best guests, please like, subscribe, and we've got a Patreon page. Also, tomorrow we are, as they say in news, efforting to do. They say that there might be a serial killer in New England. I reached out to Dr. Ann Burgess. 8 people died in the last just couple of months under somewhat similar, some different circumstances. And so there is a growing concern about a serial killer. I want to see what Ann has to say about this. I'm hoping she gets back to me, and then that might be the show tomorrow. Wednesday, for sure, we're doing Donna's hearing. We're going to take that live, and then we'll do a post-game show following that on Wednesday. Could emails from Donna, Tim, this is to you, could emails from Donna's phone be the reason that Wendy's depositions have been canceled? So Wendy and Charlie's depositions were both canceled. Why?
Well, there could be many reasons. We really don't know. The problem you have is these motions are all filed under seal. I believe the state's response was under seal, right? So we don't really know what the basis of the motions are, what the response is. Maybe the government is saying, we're not planning on using this. We've got this information. We turned it over as soon as we got it, but we don't think it's relevant. We don't think there should be a continuance. We don't plan on introducing any of it. Then the defense is going to have to come up with a reason, because it's kind of like no harm, no foul, but they could still say, we need to look into it. We need more time. And I don't know how many emails can you look through in an hour, right? I guess it depends on how long the email is. So could you go through 80,000 emails in 30 days? That's a good question when you got 2 lawyers and paralegals, but
yeah. And speak on the heels of that, Dave Arinberg, you were once the Jack Campbell of Palm Beach County. And you heard Tim say off the top that they are going to try to fight this continuance. So if you're at the helm, what are you telling Georgia and Sarah Dugan in terms of not just giving in to this continuance and getting the show on the road? What kind of argument do you make?
I think it's because of what's in there. If it's 80,000 emails of mostly junk, then you can go through them pretty quickly. But when it's real evidence that takes time to comb through, that's different. So I got to believe that the party that has seen this, which is the prosecution, realizes that most of this stuff is a bunch of spam and other, advertisement stuff you don't need. And it won't take more than 30 days to go through it. So I think that's why they're pushing back against it. Of course, we don't know what's in it, but that's why I believe that the state is not agreeing to this extension, because they probably think that this won't take so long to go through them all.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that last question that was on the screen in a second, but Dave's got to go in a minute, and I want to get this to him. Lorna McKenzie, longtime chatter. It makes me mad that Wendy stated she'll never be arrested. I have a feeling that it made Georgia Kappman even more upset. Dave Arinberg, we know Georgia's dad played football at FSU. She's competitive. Do you think that irked her to hear a potential defendant a potential defendant saying that? Do you think it bugged her?
Oh yeah, I know Georgia. I know Georgia not super well, and I've not spoken about that with her. Make that clear.
Yeah.
But if you want Wendy to be arrested, you should be glad that came out. That's what you call chalkboard material in the locker room, because you put that up on the board and they read the clips and it motivates your team to fight harder, to work harder, to be tougher. And Georgia doesn't really need extra motivation, but yeah, we're all human beings. And that's the kind of stuff. If you believe that Wendy is part of this conspiracy, that if she's out there saying that I'm never going to be arrested, of course that's going to motivate her. I think it makes it more likely that she's arrested. And I do think that it's more likely than not that when Donna is convicted, that Wendy is next.
Yeah. Dave, I know you got to run, so we'd love to have you forever, but we can't. So
hey, it's been my honor to share the stage with some great minds like Tim and Joe and you, my friend. Thanks for having me, Joel. And people can follow me on Blue Sky, Dave Arinberg, and check out Legal AF on YouTube. I'll see you there.
I like it. Just don't say
Thanks,
the words
Dave.
AF.
Good
Your
being
mother
here.
will get upset. Dave,
Bye.
let's go. I'll take you to lunch when you're back in town.
Oh, excellent. All right. I'll
All
go
right.
for surf and turf.
I'll take Steve Cohen too, but I'm not treating Cohen. All right. I'll see
Thanks,
you.
brother.
See you later, Dave. So there was a question earlier, just a moment ago, Joe, about Wendi Adelson and the possibility. The question went along the lines of Georgia Kappman really made her squirm the last time around. Is it plausible that this time around she would invoke her Fifth Amendment right and and just not answer, invoking the Fifth Amendment?
Well, she can't when Georgia asks her questions because that's exactly what the immunity is for. She's got a Fifth Amendment privilege, and what the immunity does is say, your privileges, you don't have to say anything that might incriminate you. And we're going to say that whatever you say, we can't ever prosecute you for saying it or anything that we learn because of what you said. So the privilege is covered by the immunity. She has no right to assert the privilege against the state, but she does with regard to anything the defense might ask, or if the defense wanted or call her. And that's my guess was, and Tim is right, there could be 1,000 different reasons why they cancel that deposition. But when she was deposed in Katie's trial, and I said this before, Joel, you did that reading with Judy Singh about it. She had her lawyer there, and on virtually every question, she asserted a Fifth Amendment privilege. There's no reason to believe she wouldn't do the same thing this time around. You can't put her on the stand and have her assert a Fifth Amendment privilege. And so they may have decided there's not enough, that she's going to say that they can use. But in any event, she cannot assert a privilege against the state. They shouldn't be asking her a lot of questions, because if they intend to prosecute her, you heard Tim say he advised his client out of prosecution by telling him, get as much information out there that now the privilege will cover and they won't be able to prosecute you. So Georgia has every motive to not ask her too many questions or to go any farther afield than she has to, because every answer then is something else that Georgia can't use.
That's interesting. And Catherine here, just following up on this, by the way, Poetic Justice new in the chat, and I think he was just gifted a membership. So that's why I say best guest, better community. Catherine, what do you think, Tim, what do you think Wendy may do now, knowing her mother could not be quiet about anything? And how does the state assure Wendy doesn't blurt out something she wants immunity for? Does the state need to be protective over themselves? And this is a good point, by the way. It's interesting that Wendy did not have counsel present at this police interview. But Tim, to the first question.
Well, sure. When your client gets immunity, you tell them to admit to everything they can possibly admit to, that they shoplifted when they were 9 years old. Um, but I don't think Wendy's going to blurt anything out. She did have a lawyer with her when she was arrested. She had herself as a lawyer. I
Yeah.
remember she said she didn't even know what contempt meant. So she's got a good lawyer. Okay. Her lawyer has been actively working with her for years. I don't foresee her doing anything crazy other than answering the questions. I think she's going to be, I don't know if she's worn down now, but now that she sees her mother sitting in that chair instead of her brother, will she change her attitude? Will she be a little more less confrontational and making faces and making silly comments? I don't know. I mean, we'll see.
And Tim, explain this. I don't fully get this. Wendy is considered a co-conspirator, but is
Right.
not indicted, an unindicted co-conspirator. What
Right.
is that in plain English? I mean, I know what it means, but what does it mean legally, I guess?
Well, they can call her a co-conspirator. She's not really a co-conspirator until she's indicted or formally charged as a co-conspirator. But you always get cases where you have people get immunity early on they were members of the conspiracy, but because they came in early and they had very limited, they decided not to charge them. So they are technically an unindicted co-conspirator because they were involved in the same criminal enterprise and they just have not been charged. So while they call her a co-conspirator, that's a very loose term.
Just looking at some of the comments here. Joe Patuto, the professor, is there a legal standard here that Judge Stephen Everett has to weigh in order to continue this trial? In other words, prior case law, or does he just make this decision based on what's presented to him at this hearing on Wednesday?
Well, this is the kind of decision that it's a little difficult to find prior case law on. Case law will tell you what the standard is he has to use. I mean, the standard, is it abuse of discretion, or what he has to do and what level he has of certainty he has to be at. But case law isn't going to help very much because this is fact dependent. How many emails are there? How much time? And you heard Tim say, 30 days or 60 days to go through the email, but you got to add to that they're also trying to prepare for the trial. So even if 30 or 60 days is enough to go through all those emails and be and decide whether they can use any or which ones might be incriminating or what they're going to do about it, that's time that's taken away from trial prep. And at some point, they've got to focus on what they're going to do at the trial. So the judge, he's going to be very practical. He will, I think, lean in their direction on this because you leave it in and there's an appealable issue. You give them the time and you take that issue off the table. And the last thing anybody wants is to have appealable issue or substantial appealable issues that can be raised. I mean, defense is always going to raise something, but you want to get rid of the ones where there's at least some chance that an appellate court might reverse a conviction. Nobody would want that. So better to be a little careful now than risk a reversal later.
Joe, you got to get yourself some water. Purple coconut here. This is 1,000% true. Outside of Dan, his children are the ultimate victims. And I say this and I say it again. So are Charlie Adelson's children, Sigfredo Garcia and Katie Macbeth. All those kids are innocent victims. Are going to have to grow up in a difficult world, but even under more difficult circumstances because of what their parents have put them through. Sending love and hugs to Ruth. I know she is not going to be too thrilled if this gets continued. Neither will Phil or Shelley. So thoughts do go out to the Markel family about all this. Tim, one thing that we talked about, but then we really haven't heard anything else, and I'm wondering if this could be some sort of wild card move by the defense on Wednesday, even though it's, I guess they're supposed to inform the court about it. But what about this whole notion of change of venue? I mean, I know you don't think it's possible. You've basically seen one change of venue in your 38 years. But is that something that they are going to try at least? And we're getting obviously close here, assuming that, we're all talking about a continuance, but the trial is supposed to be basically a month away. I mean, this would be really late in the game, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was sitting there just thinking about the change of venue because they have this expert that they wanted to have a hearing on. Florida law requires them to at least attempt to sit a jury. They have to try to sit a jury, and then the judge will make the decision whether or not a jury cannot be picked. Then he can order a change of venue. But we're far away from that.
Yeah.
I still think you talk to people today, a lot of people don't know anything about this case. People are living their lives in Tallahassee. We're a small town, but people are doing what they do. They're either going to school, we just had this shooting here. So
Mhm.
that's taken a focus for everybody. The Markel case there's going to be plenty easy to get 12 jurors that don't know anything about this.
Yeah, I've said this before. Steve Cohen and I
Yeah.
were up there. There's a lot of people in Tallahassee that just never heard. I mean, most people are not following
Right.
stuff like this, the vast majority. But if you turn on, if you're following a case, a la Karen Reed or any other case, you think the whole world is glued to it. But it's just because maybe we are interested. Tim, just back to you on this. Is there a strategic risk by the defense here? And I don't know what it would be. I'm just asking to try to continue this, to keep kind of sort of, pushing it back. I'm sure Donna doesn't want it, but is there any kind of big risk involved?
Well, she's trying to get experts. They're trying to do depots. They have this conflict that just keeps carrying on. It's dragging on and on. I don't know, unless they're not ready for trial. I would think that they want to move forward unless they think if we get a continuance, maybe one of the state's experts is not available. Maybe one of their witnesses is not available, and it may make the state's case weaker. The state's case usually doesn't get weaker with time. It usually gets stronger. So it's like a second trial. You might get an acquittal, or you might get a hung jury on the first trial. The state usually fixes all those problems, redirects their case, makes it tighter, and it usually ends in a conviction the second time.
Interested watcher here, new name to Joe Patudo. Have they been able to recover WhatsApp messages? I don't know that we know fully what they've been able to recover. Could this be the 80,000? I mean, they would be part of the WhatsApp messages. I believe, Tim, correct me, because you might know this as well. I think they were able to retrieve some of the WhatsApp messages, but I don't know the extent. But Joe Patudo, I guess the bigger question is, we say, we're saying 80,000 emails, but it could be a combination of a bunch of things, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the 80,000 things are. And a lot of those emails, you remember, if I send an email to you and then you respond and then I respond, you can have an email chain that goes on forever. And there's one, the last email may be yes or okay or tomorrow. We just don't know what they are. And I don't know, maybe Tim knows for sure. I don't know whether 80,000 is for certain 80,000.
I think that's an estimate that I was
Okay.
told.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, what about and Joe, I'm interested to get your take on this too. Is there any truth to the notion of momentum when it comes to a trial? Like, it feels like the state has all the momentum, but it's like a football game. You take the wind out of the sails by continuing it. Is there anything to this, Tim?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, it's been delayed long enough. It's not like it's a speedy trial. It's just in the news, and everything's been written about it. When the trial comes up and when motions and hearings, the paper talks about it. The podcasters continuously talk about it, even when there's not a lot of news, because they're prepping for the trial. So I don't think in this case that this delay is going to really change any momentum, because that momentum is going to change when the state does their opening arguments, or their opening statement.
Joe, to you from Hello Shiny. Donna's just going through the motions. I think she knows her future. Wendy is different. Her trial would be the best, most dramatic trial ever. I don't know about that, but I also don't know. Joe, taking off the law professor hat and putting on the psychologist hat here, do you think that Donna is resigned to losing this trial? Or do you think in her heart of hearts she thinks she's got a real shot at winning this?
I don't think she's resigned to losing the trial. She's looking at the rest of her life in prison. She, from all we could tell, thought at the end of Charlie's trial that it was a slam dunk that he was going to be acquitted. She's got 2 new lawyers. They're going to be looking at, we don't know what the defense will be, but it won't be the same defense. I think she thinks she's got a shot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think she definitely believes she has a shot, and I think she's going to be stunned if there's a conviction, but I think there's no doubt that there's a conviction come. I think it's going to be really interesting psychologically because, man, by fall, if it gets continued, she might actually need a walker or a wheelchair the way she's doing in jail. So, and by the way, kudos to John Singer because he's the one that said that Donna was not going to last long in jail. And when she went in, she was pretty spry and in really good shape, but we've seen her lately and, this is not body shaming. It's a reality. She's packed on the pound. She does not look nearly as well, and she's having a hard time in there. But Tim Jansen, let's just switch gears for a second. Dan Rashbaum brought in a real high-powered jury selector for jury selection. So this time around, if you're the defense, who are you looking for on your jury here?
Well, to go back to the last question you posed to Joe, everybody buying a lottery ticket believes they're going to win, and they're already thinking about how they're going to spend the money because you wouldn't spend your money if you knew for sure you were going to lose. She doesn't have an option because she's charged. She's got to think she's going to win. If I'm Donna, well, it's really a tough choice. I would assume that they have the money, that they've done focus groups or mock trials, and that they have found which jurors are best for Donna, be it an older person, a younger person, a male or a female, or depending on education. So they must know who their best jury is or jurors could be. And they're going to try to load them up. And the state's going to try to does the same thing. They're going to try to get rid of those people. So jury selection is not a jury of your peers. It's really kicking off the bad ones and trying to keep the good ones. Both sides try to do it. It's a misnomer when they say, we'll just take the first 12. Neither side wants the first 12. So the state wants all the former law enforcement, and the defense wants all the teachers and nurses that are very forgiving and very open and are not judgmental. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Joe Patuto, do you agree? Any follow up to that in terms of jury selection? Like, in terms of the defense, who's a perfect juror, and the state, who would be a perfect juror?
Yeah, no, I agree. I knew a homicide prosecutor once in a death penalty case. There was someone who worked at a circus, and he left the guy on the jury, and there was one holdout on the death sentence. It was the guy who worked for the circus. The prosecutor said, I didn't know enough about what circus workers did or thought, and I knew I should have struck him. So, yeah, each side, we say we want a neutral jury, and, I think in one sense we do, but we don't get to neutral by each side picking somebody they think is going to be objective. We get to neutral by each side fighting to get rid of the ones they think are inclined to go the other way. And we hope what we're left with is a group of people. And that's why I think we should always have 12, but that's why we want a large enough group, because you're going to have some that the defense thinks is inclined or at least open to their case, and some the prosecution thinks is open to their case, and then they're going to listen and talk about it.
Poetic justice. I want to keep this comment up here, but he says the best demographic for Donna are people who have innocently purchased one-way tickets to Vietnam. Tim Jansen, John Suiki, who again has been on the show a few times and is just a great guy. He also, if he's listening to this, he has the largest calf muscles I've ever seen in my life. That's what stands out to me most, John, outside of your intelligence. But John Suiki, I'm just thinking of the amount of money that the Adelsons are spending. So now you get an expert like John Suiki, and that's another bill. How does that work, Tim? I'm curious. So does the defense go to Donna and say, hey, we really need a digital forensics expert? Can you crack open another 50 grand, 100K, whatever it is? Or is this something that the attorneys are paying for, and then they just raise the rate for Donna? How does this work here, Tim?
No, it works like this. You go to your client and says, hey, we might have a chance of winning this, but we have to have an expert. And that expert bills separately from us. We don't make a dime off of him. And this is what his retainer fee is. We really need him. He could make a difference in the case. And this is what it's going to cost. And then because of what John does, he'll get a retainer and then bill by the hour. And by looking over all these documents, his bill is going to be sky high. And then he's got to travel, then he's got to sit and wait. And you're paying, that meter is running unless he agrees to a flat fee.
Joe Patuto, are the Adelsons going to be indigent when this is all said and done? I mean, this is Charlie, Donna, who knows about Harvey? Guy was trying to be retired in his 80s. It's costing a lot of money. I mean, do you think when this is all said and done that they are basically going to be broke because of this?
I don't know how much they started with. They did have a lot of real estate, and as I understand it, they still have a fair amount of real estate left. I suppose it's possible, but that's not possible for me to answer. Excuse me, because you have to know where they started, and I have no idea where they started in terms of how much money they had.
Tim, someone wants to know if you use local jury consultants.
I have a jury consultant who was from South Florida, Tampa. He's moved to Chattahoochee, and that's who I use. But they do different things now. AI and computers and Zoom has changed. When we did it, you get a hotel room and you do ads and you get people to show up, and we find the people that show up are either the homeless, retired. So you don't really get a cross section of the jurors in your panel. But now they're doing it where it's on Zoom. So you get paid a fee. Say they give them $150 for the day to listen to arguments for 3 hours, and then they give their opinion, and then you watch them deliberate and you kind of get an idea. That's much more effective than the way we were doing it, where you weren't getting from the jury pool. You're getting people who are like, I hate to say this, that give blood and stuff like that, anything to get money. So that's not a representation of what's going to happen on jury selection day.
Mm-hmm. Tim, question to you. I don't think it's any secret that I talk, and Steve Cohen talks to Ruth. I text with Phil and talk to him periodically. And you, as a defense attorney, are usually representing the defendants. But what do you think this roller coaster ride is like for the Markels?
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And even though you're representing someone who's charged with a crime, there's never a case where I don't feel empathy for the victim, but you can't show it, right? Because your client doesn't want you fighting for them. But in your mind and you're thinking, am I doing the right thing? And you're convincing, you're defending this person, making sure the process is right. But you never don't feel sadness somewhat for the victim, especially in a murder case where someone was murdered. Yeah. So it's not easy. You're balancing your personal feelings and your professional judgment.
Yeah. Let's go to some bigger questions. I like these. Tim, back to you on this. Why is it that people think they're going to get away with these crimes? Julia Nielsen wants to know why the Adelsons think that they would get it. I mean, they're very well-educated people. They're wealthy people. They're well off. They're professionals. These aren't people who are, uneducated and didn't know of the repercussions. What is going on here that they commit a crime like this and think that they're actually going to walk free?
Well, emotions got to the best of Donna, and Charlie was trying to help his mother, and they probably felt they were so insulated that with Charlie hiring these people, that would never come back to them. But they did some really dumb things. paying Catherine Magbanua, putting her on the books at the clinic, really stupid. Talking in codes, all these text messages, stapling the money, having girlfriends seeing stapled money. They just make bad decisions. Ted Bundy got caught because he was a terrible driver. A lot of time these defendants think they commit the perfect crime and they do something so stupid it gets them caught. But today, with technology, with the cameras, with phones that can tell you where you are every day, where you've been, your movements, whether you're going up and down stairs, it is completely changed. And DNA has completely changed the criminal justice system in the last, say, 35 years.
Edward Murphy, B. Murphy. Tim is a good one. Yes, he is. Joel, it's a narcissist thing from Boho Hobo. Narcissists live in a different reality and never think they're going to lose. What is this? This has to do with earwax. Hey, Joel, did you ever use the Suiki earwax to keep your haunted camera? No, the camera's moved a few more times. Joe Patuto, I mean, conversely, and I don't care so much about this, but I'm curious. With someone like Wendy, I don't think as much Harvey, but unless Wendy is a total sociopath, which maybe she is, I know that I can barely function in a normal world, Joe Patuto. Now, knowing that Georgia Kappman might be coming after me, that's a scary proposition. I mean, what do you think her day-to-day is like?
I don't know. Some people, and I think some defendants and some people who have committed crime are very good at compartmentalizing and putting something in a different box and not thinking about it. Some of the reports about Wendy in Austin is that she's in a relationship and seems to be doing well, if not thriving. So she may be very good at sort of boxing it off and not thinking about it most of the time. I couldn't do it, but she seems maybe very capable of it.
I could definitely not. I mean, that would just make me ill beyond any
Joe,
measure.
but Joe, you make great points, Joe. I have clients, some who, when they're charged, I don't hear from them until I need to tell them something. I've got others that call me every day nervous about it. And some don't call me and said, I knew you were taking care of it. But others, so everybody handles pressure and stress like this differently. They really do.
Tim, I'd be calling you every 5 seconds. You'd have to change your number. Laura Glass here. If the state does not arrest Wendy, I hope the Markels sue her in civil court. This is an interesting point here. This is something that finally, after 14 years in the Ellen Greenberg case, the family was going to sue some members of the city of Philadelphia, and they settled the night before. Are we going to see this get to a point, Tim? And Ruth and Phil really don't, and Shelley don't speak about this because they're advised by their own attorneys, which is smart. But are we going to see a day and time and somewhere in the near future where they do make sure that the Adelsons are bankrupt because they sue them for whatever they've got left?
I don't do civil work. I don't know what the statute of limitations would be for wrongful death. So I don't know if the statute has run in Florida. That would be good for a personal injury lawyer to determine that.
By the way, now is the time. If you got any questions, we're going to go a few more minutes. Capital triple Qs here. I'll get them for Joe and Tim. Toronto, Ontario, Canada is in the house. Joe Patuto, someone was asking about Charlie's appeal, which seems like, just the work on that is sort of hung up. But what is the realistic projection there about him getting another trial based on, I know there was an issue with the score card, the score sheet, and all these other things?
Well, the score sheet, all they had to do was fix the calculation. I don't think there was any viable appealable issue coming out of the trial. The one that's sitting out there is the conflict issue with regard to the prior representation and whether Roshbaum's conflict in having represented Donna and then planning to represent her again affected his representation, Rashbaum's representation of Charlie. And whether Charlie effectively waived. That's a pretty substantial issue. I mean, conflict issues are pretty critical. You've got a defendant has a right to a zealous representation by a lawyer, and if the lawyer is looking either in his rearview mirror or looking ahead to another representation, you can certainly make an argument that he's not acting zealously. But that's the one that's out there. I don't know I wouldn't want to put odds on it. I do know that one of the claims that had been made was that Rashbaum did not call Donna or Harvey to the stand in Charlie's trial. And the claim was that he didn't do that because he knew he'd be representing Donna later, and he therefore was not really doing his best to represent Charlie. He said way back when, at the time in which Georgia said, I'm not calling them, and he then also withdrew them from his witness list, he said the only reason why he had them on the list was because he thought Georgia was going to call them, and that he thought Georgia was trying to do an end run to find out about his double secret, great defense theory of the extortion by the killers. So that's helpful to the state side of this, because there is on the record way back then him saying he had no intention to call them. And there's probably a viable argument, at least, that they wouldn't have helped, that on the facts, they would not have helped Charlie's case, and that he could have made a reasonable assessment that Donna, because she wouldn't have been able to withstand cross-examination, might have heard the case. So that's sitting out there on the state side. But what an appellate court will do with it, I don't know. I will say, I think it's a really viable appellate issue.
That's interesting. And it could be torturous if we have to do that all over again, especially for the Markel family. And by the way, someone, I forget who, just brought up a really interesting, I think it was Lee T, brought up an interesting point that, Tim, that some sort of civil suit could also adversely affect the Markel grandchildren. So they probably need to take that into account as well. Whitney in the comments here, I think the prosecution was finally able to get find an expert witness in cell phones and get the WhatsApp messages. So that's why we're getting, who knows? That's her theory on why maybe we're getting this dump from President Gerard. Isn't it the case, Tim Jansen, that Charlie will refuse to testify at Donna's trial, as it may affect his appeal? Only when his appeals are exhausted will he likely speak the truth about what has happened. What about that, Tim?
Well, I think this state's not going to call Charlie in direct. I think they may call him in rebuttal, depending on what Donna's defense is going to be. I think the conflict issue, I agree with Joe. I think that the conflict issue was that, as she succinctly said, the state was going to call Donna. Oh no, Charlie was going to call Donna, and then the state wanted to depose to find out what they were going to do. Then the lawyer from Miami claimed she was going to take the Fifth Amendment, and then the judge was not happy with that lawyer not giving adverse case law and shut her down quickly. And then for some reason, Charlie and Dan decided not to call Donna. Now, is that going to be, he did that because he had a conflict? And is Charlie going to claim, hey, I wanted to call my mom to confirm what I told her when I told her about being threatened, and confirm that she didn't come pay money. She wasn't coming to my house. So there are things that Donna could have given that might have helped his defense, but is that enough the appellate court's going to find to overturn a conviction?
By the way, Beach Bum pointing out Vancouver is in mourning. There was an horrible tragedy over the weekend where someone ran over about 11 people. I think it was like a Filipino food market, killing 11 people. So it's usually America, happens in Canada, happens other places, but we're usually at the forefront of that stuff. So condolences to Canada, our neighbors to the north. Herbie, Cassidy, Tim, back to you on this. They can offer Charlie Adelson a deal for Wendy. Is that a possibility, Tim?
Not really. Not really.
Why not?
One, Charlie is still trying to go through his appeal. He's got a good appellate lawyer. He believes that he thinks he might get a new trial because of ineffective assistance of counsel or conflict. So there's no really reason for him to do that. He might wait till his appeal is over, and then he might wait to see what happens with Donna. And then maybe then, if he knows he's got nothing, maybe his lawyer cuts a deal to try to go against Wendy and the father.
Beachside Boomer with an interesting question. Then we'll get some final thoughts to Joe on this one. Does the panel think an older or younger jury would be better for Donna? Instinctively, I'm going to say an older because I feel like they could relate better, but maybe I'm completely wrong, Joe Patuto.
I don't know. I really don't know. I can think of a reason why an older jury wouldn't have any sympathy whatsoever. A younger jury might think, boy, this is an old person. She was taken in by her son. An older juror who's on the jury is going to say, I'm intelligent, I'm bright, I couldn't be taken in. Don't tell me that she was taken in just because she was whatever age she was at the time. So I guess I'm tending towards saying younger, but age is only going to be one factor, though, in trying to decide which jurors should sit. I can't imagine that either side would say, gee, if you're old enough or young enough, I'm going to take you. There are going to be a lot of different things going on, but I guess I'm tending, if that were the only factor, I might be tending towards younger.
And look, Julie Frew agrees. What do I know? Tim Jansen, what do you think? Because a younger jury, I guess, would have more empathy, maybe.
I agree. The younger jury may not criticize or judge the older person as harshly as the older jurors will, because they put themselves to a higher standard. They've lived the life they had by making decision making, and they're not going to buy this cockamamie defense. Whereas a younger juror might look at their grandmother and say, she probably really didn't know. So I think a younger jury would be better. But I think what happens is the state's probably going to try to cut all the older jurors, thinking they want an old jury, and you might end up with a young jury.
And look, Nan R, going to show how wrong I am. Joel, I would judge her harshly. I think younger would be more sympathetic. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think you guys are right. Younger men, or men at least. Interesting. Very interesting, the psychology. Look at this. Dr. Mack. Younger males, in my view, would be better for Donna. That's interesting, and I guess you're right. LeBron Jane, she's in the chat. The younger jury will get older with all the
That's a great one.
The woman who never gets older, the professor Joe Patuto, living her best life. I'll tell you, the people I think live the best lives are the following: retired law enforcement. The FBI and detectives I know all retired after 20 years, and they all drive Ferraris, and they all travel around the world, and they all do cool things. The other people are the law professors or professors. They just kind of enjoy life. They work, they retire, sort of retire, never really retire. And you still get health benefits through the University of Nebraska, Joe Patuto. Is that too personal a question?
Oh, it's not personal. The answer is no.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go.
I do get, because I'm emerita, I get, the IT stuff and, all the other services, but no, not health.
And you still get, by the way, if you want to go to university, and people don't know this, but you were very active in University of Nebraska athletics.
Yep.
If you want a 50-yard line to a Nebraska football game, do you just make a call and get them and go?
No, because there are season's tickets. There's no way you can sit on the 50-yard line at a Nebraska football game, but I probably could get tickets. And I did go to the Gotham Bowl in New York, but I got those through the Big Ten when I did that, and those were really good seats. Although nobody went to the bowl game, so it wouldn't have mattered. You could have sat anywhere you wanted.
Yeah. By the way, someone's saying I've got to get Carm on here for an older person's point of view. I don't know how much she'll appreciate that, but she'll definitely come on once this trial gets cracking. We will get Carm giving us some of her wisdom. So Joe Patuto's got plenty of wisdom of her own. You just heard Professor Emerita, University of Nebraska. She's taught everywhere. She's an intellectual. She's smart. Joe Patuto, what can we expect on Wednesday, and what do you expect moving forward here?
Oh, we're going to go through whatever the motions are that are on for Wednesday.
By the way,
I
Joe, I'm going to already ask you, and Tim too. I don't know if Tim can do it, but can you join us live for the hearing?
I can, I think.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah. So I expect it to go. I've watched those lawyers a couple of times now. So let me say, I have not found that their arguments are crisp and to the point. And unless they've reformed since the last time I've heard them, I would expect the same. But that's kind of the law professor looking at the sort of the style points here. I expect Judge Everett to start on time, to be in control of the hearing. And I expect them to get through the things that they're going to get through. And I won't be surprised if he gives them some level of a continuance, depending on what the state says about those emails or whatever they are, and the need for time.
Ned Smith, where have you been my whole life? Chiming in at the very end here. What sport was Joe involved in? Joe, what was you had that connection to Nebraska athletics. What was it?
I was called the faculty athletic representative. The NCAA requires a tenured full professor to have oversight of athletics. And so I had oversight responsibility for all the teams. I served on the Big Ten governance. I was chair of the NCAA Committee on Infractions for several years. I served on the men's gymnastics committee. They never let faculty serve on championship committees, but I got to serve on one. It was very interesting. And I don't know that I'd want to do it now with the mess that college athletics has become, but it was very, very good. I got to know a lot of coaches very well. I had a long running, let us say, debate with the Michigan State basketball coach, who of course also is Italian. And we had a lot of fun at bars together.
I love it. Joe Patuto, I don't want to come off as an overbearing parent. You guys probably, Joe, I'm sure you remember Todd Marinovich, that quarterback who the dad basically forced him. He wanted him to be a quarterback from like the age of 3, which he ended up doing. Then he became a drug addict and dad died. But,
that was Pete Maravich, wasn't it? His father had a...
I forget the dad's name. Todd Marinovich was the player. I can't remember the dad's name, but
I mean,
anyway,
Pete Maravich also, his father had him dribbling with both hands, and he died at 40 of a heart attack.
Yeah, so it's probably not great that I share this, but my son did hit his first triple ever in T-ball on Sunday. Probably one of the best shots I have seen.
Was really a triple? I've seen the kids play T-ball. There's seven errors in the field, and they get to third base and they call it a hit.
Look at Joe minimizing this.
I don't want to minimize.
I even put it on Instagram. Yeah, it was like a real legit triple.
Okay.
And it doesn't end there. My daughter says she will be in LA for the U.S. gymnastics team. So not that I'm pressuring them, Joe.
Gymnastics is a tough sport. Sport.
But let me tell you something. It's an easy way for me to retire early. So keep at it, kids. 10 hours a day minimum. Vesper Martini here. This is breaking news, by the way. Dave Knisevich was arrested not long ago. His wife went off to Spain. He went to Serbia, and she wound up missing, presumed dead. And Dave Knisevich was ultimately arrested when he came back to America, and they found him no longer alive in his jail cell today, this afternoon. So I think he gave himself the ultimate punishment. I don't believe that they've ever found the wife, but they did have video of him in the location of her at her apartment building. He did not take a motorcycle there, but he was wearing a motorcycle helmet. It was an odd case, and I think he just brought it to a very abrupt end, which might not be the worst thing in the world because he doesn't sound like the greatest guy in the world, but you never wish death on anyone. Tim Jansen, he is the famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney. You're talking about, was it Tom Izzo, Michigan State? Is that who you're talking about? There you
Tom
go.
I
Izzo.
was, yep.
Yeah, Tom Izzo. He seems like a cool dude.
He's a lot of fun to be around. A lot of people in athletics are a lot of fun to be around. They're bright and they're dedicated and they're driven, but they can be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Tim Jansen, you have fun with FSU and Florida athletics. Tim Jansen. This Wednesday, is this going to be a half hour? Is it going to go longer than a half hour? And what happens once this hearing? Marv was the father, Joe. You're right. Marv Marinovich. Thank you. That's why I say best guest, better community. Tim Jansen, what happens after Wednesday's hearing?
So the hearing will be on time, and I have to be at the state attorney's office at 3. So I will go downstairs. I will be in the courtroom at 4. So I can report from there, and then I can do the show later. Okay. But Joe, we're celebrating our NCAA basketball championship, my team. We are the only college in America that has 3 football national championships and 3 basketball national championships.
At the faculty one day, I asked how many major football powers also were, very competitive in basketball, because some of the guys around the lunch table claimed that you were one or the other. And then they went through and they came up with a number of schools. It's not easy to do, and congratulations, but there are few that have been able to do that well in both.
Yeah.
So my school, the University of Florida, but I represented FSU players for like 4 years, so they liked me over there. And University of Florida has been in the national championship basketball game 4 times. They've won it 3 times. They lost it 1 time to Tom Izzo and Michigan State.
He's a great guy, let me tell you. Well, let me give you Nebraska statistics. We are the only, what used to be called Division 1A, Division FBS school in the country that has never won an NCAA tournament game. Never. We're the only one left.
Really? In basketball?
In basketball. Never.
Wow. Who knew? Who knew all these?
Now you do.
Yeah. By the way, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com is the email. If this gets continued, I'd love your input on which trial to cover. Right now, I'm leaning towards Diddy, although it's an interesting and weird trial to cover because there's no cameras in that courtroom. By the way, apparently his defense is going with the swinger defense, which is a fascinating defense, but I don't understand that, because does that allow you to R drug and R men and women, even if you are? So I just don't get it. Tim Jansen, this is where it's a slippery slope being a defense attorney. You got to come up with something. Bichon Mama here is in a Bichon Frise, the dog. Andre Agassi has had a tennis racket in his hand, and it was taped around his wrist at 2 years old. True story. I took the strings out of my racket, and I have my racket strung up to J Mac's back. He has to go to school with a racket on his back every single day, but I'm joking. He doesn't really do that. People take me seriously. I'm joking. Diddy is Christy Wolf's choice here. Let me know what you think. What trial should I cover?
You're going to cover Stearns?
Yeah, but that's continued too now, Joe.
It got continued.
Everything is continued.
That trial and that defendant. I mean, there are a lot of murders in this world. That one really, really, really pulls at me. That child from age 7 or 8 lived a really miserable life. That one really bothers me.
Clary Brown, I love these new names, especially Clary. Please not Diddy. There's a part of me that doesn't want to cover it. Number one, because there's no cameras, nothing. And number two, I don't know how much I care about Diddy. I care about the victims in that case. But let me know. There's a case out of New Jersey, Paul Canero. That is my home state, Caneiro. that murdered his entire brother's family. And the way he did it was insane. It's a very big case out of the Garden State, but you let me know. And your wish is my command. How about that? Huge thanks to Corey Richens got continued too. And I'm hearing it could be a year or two for her. I just don't understand. I don't understand the system, Tim and Joe. But huge thanks to Tim Jansen, the Florida Gator, but he reps the Noles. Huge thanks to Joe Patuto, who's just an all-around cool woman. And she's into the sports, but she's also into their Broadway plays. When is Courtney Clenny doesn't even have a court date, does it? Let me know if Courtney Clenny has a court date. I don't think she does. Anyway, love you, America. There could be a serial killer in New England. I reached out to Ann Burgess. We might be doing a show on that tomorrow. Alexander's brothers, there has been an update, namely that Tal, one of the brothers, is now, quote unquote, going to war in a divorce with his wife, who's divorcing him. And his quote is, "I'm going to go to war." You think that guy has better things to do right now than worry about going to war with a soon-to-be ex-wife. But thank you, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Love you, America. Love you, Jersey, New York City, even though your rent is ridiculously high. There's a candidate there, Joe. You remember. He said rent's too damn high. That was his whole platform in New York. I covered that guy when I was at Fox. And Tallahassee, and, of course, justice for Dan Markel. See you, everybody. See you tomorrow.